It's punk rock bowling time. That's right, for the 24th year, one of the greatest festivals on earth, in my opinion, returns to downtown Las Vegas the weekend of May 25th, 26th, and 27th. I have had some of my greatest times playing this thing and just hanging out at this thing. You want to know how much this festival speaks to Turned Out a Punk's mindset? The headliners are Devo, Descendants, and Madness. Every day of this festival, the lineup is stacked with amazing bands of all types and stripes of punk and hardcore from all different eras, from ska to post-hardcore. We're talking like Bratmobile to Rock from the Crypt to Stiff Little Fingers to the Cosmic Psychos to Scowl to Chad. And then there's also all these late night after shows which are happening. And you wouldn't believe the lineup of these things, from the Zeros to Agnostic Front and everything in between. This festival is out of control for fans of punk. So I hope I will see you there, because this isn't like some sort of festival that you just go to and the bands are secluded in some sort of backstage area. Bands and fans and just punks alike are all just taking over downtown Las Vegas. So you turn around and all of a sudden you're gambling beside John Doe from X. I don't know if John Doe gambles, but if you turn around on the buffet line, you'll probably see me. And you better believe we're going to be talking about punk music. And because this festival loves this podcast as much as this podcast loves this festival, Punk Rock Bowling is bringing you a series of special episodes. So each and every week, I will have an episode going up featuring someone that's playing this festival. And hot damn, are there some good ones coming. Head over to punkrockbowling.com and hopefully I see you in downtown Las Vegas, May 25th, 26th, and 27th. Hello and welcome to another Punk Rock Bowling Turned Out a Punk special episode. And today on the show, returning to the show, one of the greatest front people ever. One of my favorite episodes, actually, the first time he was here. Roger Murray from Agnostic Front is back on the show. More info on that in 1 second. First, if you want to get in touch with me, hit up the email address, turnedoutapunkpodcast@gmail.com. That is run by Tristan Abraham, my brother, guest booker, and show producer extraordinaire. And he will get the message to me. He also runs a Facebook page, a YouTube page, a TikTok page, and an Instagram page, all for Turned Out a Punk. Those can be found at Turned Out a Punk on those platforms. I'm on Twitter or Instagram at Left for Damian. To support the show, tell all your friends about it. I play in a band. We are called Fucked Up. You can find out more information at fuckedup.cc. We got shows and tours and all sorts of stuff coming up. And that is it. All right, on to today's show. As I said off the top, Roger Murray is back. We were also supposed to be joined by Vinnie, but Vinnie did not make the podcast. Roger talks a little bit about that off the top. But what happened was I had all this stuff kind of prepared to talk to Vinnie about, and Vinnie and Roger together about. And because we had to pivot, we wind up just having a really great conversation. Roger is someone who has had an immense influence on myself and the music I make through the music he's made in Agnostic Front, but he's someone who barring that first conversation and running into him a few times on the road, I've never really had a chance to sit down and talk with. And there's a lot of things I've wanted to talk to him about for a very long time, and you hear a lot of that in this conversation. So I'm excited for you to hear it. This is a great one. Agnostic Front will be down at Punk Rock Bowling in Las Vegas. Roger talks about a special exhibit thing he has popping up down there with some ephemera. Punk Rock Bowling is kind of becoming like WrestleMania weekend, where there's just like the Punk Rock Bowling event, all those after shows, and then just people showing up and doing all sorts of cool little pop-up things as well. So I'm very excited. I can't wait to get down there. 2024 also marks the 40th anniversary of, I guess not 40th anniversary, 40th year, 40th birthday, 40th anniversary year, start of the 40th anniversary. Anyway. Victim in Pain came out in 1984, and now it's 2024, and it's still one of the greatest albums ever made. Roger talks about it in the show, but there is a 40th anniversary reissue of this monster, which is coming out and it's going to have all sorts of bonus stuff in it. You can get more information at Generation Records about that. There's going to be some variants, and there's going to be some down there at Punk Rock Bowling too. So get ready. There's a tape as well, which also has United Blood on it, and which I guess United Blood 83. So this would be the 40th anniversary of United Blood this year. Anyway, I'm confusing myself with this math. Get these records. And that is it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Roger Murray on Turned Out a Punk. Roger, welcome back to the show.
You're welcome. Good to be back. I love this shirt. Poison Idea. Pick your king.
Yeah, rest in peace, Pig.
Yeah.
Which actually, we were supposed to be joined by Vinnie, which may or may not happen, but I did want to talk to you, and Poison Ideas is kind of another example of this, but I was thinking about it. You and Vinnie are kind of like the Mick and Keith of hardcore in a lot of ways,
Yeah, I get it, man.
But I think that's almost like a New York tradition, and maybe it originally came out of sort of Stones worship. But you look back at Thunders and Johansson, or even the Dead Boys. I know they're transplants, but like the Dead Boys, there's sort of this like, and the Ramones as well, like where there's like this idea that I don't want to say like co-front people, but almost like at times competing front people in bands, where
Yeah.
it doesn't become like it works in this way because it's like it doesn't, like, it's not like Jello Biafra or Flag with any of their singers where it's like the show with these guys playing behind them. There's almost like this like kind of constant interplay between the two of you guys up front.
Yeah. I mean, we've been friends forever. I mean, going on, been a band for 42 years. Our friendship has been that long, and we just we're different, very different from each other. Vinny's got Vinny will talk to a fire hydrant. He doesn't need to have anybody. He can talk to a conversation with a fire hydrant, and he'll just talk to anybody. He's that guy. I've always been a little bit more reserved, more humble, more. A lot of people don't really like to approach me. I don't know why. I'm a nice guy, but I just carry myself differently. I've always been I've been an introvert my whole life, So this band stuff, which is great, I love. I want to say it was always a little weird and strange for me, putting myself out there. But I'm okay with it. And Vinny picks up the slack where I need where I need to go bury my head in in the ground or something, So he is it's definitely like I always say more like the Odd Couple. Remember that show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's more like that, But we definitely when we come together, it's always great. It's like nothing ever stopped in between. But when I need my space, and it's fine. We text each other here and there, and we talk, we communicate through Mike, Gallo, whatever. He knows I need my space. But he knows when we come together, we're fine. We catch up. We go, I got to go back to my family, my kids, my subtle craziness where he goes to his full-on craziness. He's going wrestling. He's the outlaw Vinnie Stigma. I mean, this guy. The other day I was watching something on YouTube, and he's on a train. He's dressed like a clown. How did this guy do this stuff? And where does it come from? Why do I have to find these things on the internet? Like, he's out of his mind,
It's almost like you need that kind of two types of personality for a band to survive long term, where you need someone who's got their heads in the clouds the whole time and someone who's got their feet on the ground the whole time.
Absolutely. I always like to say he's like our living Eddie from like Iron Maiden. Have Eddie the character, but Stigma's alive. He's the character that's alive. So we've always had this joke: when he drops dead, we're gonna stuff him and put him on a stage going like this on some train rails, with his guitar going back and forth, because he is our mascot, a living mascot, But yeah. He is what he is, and he loves life. He enjoys life, and he really does. I've never met anybody in my life that has really lived a life like he has lived a life. An interesting life, the most interesting man in the world, if you know what I mean. That's the name of his book. It's coming out September.
I know.
He lived an interesting life, and to its fullest,
Well, I was going to say, like, your book is an all-time classic, must-read thing, but the only book after yours that I would want to read would be a Vinnie book, because
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I love it. I love the description of it because it's very, very Vinny. It's got crossword puzzles, it's got recipes, it's got a comic strip. It's all over the place, you know?
yeah,
Because I don't think you can sit this guy down and have a normal conversation within 2 minutes. And that was a lot of problems we were getting during interviews. Like people, I'm like, you got to help me with interviews. And we send some interviews to him. They call back, no, we have to do it with Roger. Like, what happened? Well, he wanted to talk about the Steelers, and that's not what the interview is about. He'll just he'll talk about what he wants to. He'll just change the subject, and you're talking about what he wants to. And that's just him. He's all over the place. You can't sit him down and you can never get a full story from him. There's also little parts. You have to 2 or 3 days later, the rest of the parts come in, you know. He's just he's a character.
because in that documentary you talk about, I believe it's just self-diagnosed, but ADHD, and that you kind of deal with, and
Yeah, I
then
do it.
you see Vinny in a lot of those scenes where he's having these sort of free-form conversations. As someone who does also have ADHD, you recognize that, like, you maybe that's why you guys get along, is because you recognize the maybe the personalities work well. I know different sort of
Yeah,
levels of.
we definitely get along. We do not get along. We get along. We've been through a lot, and he's always been there for me. I've always been there for him. So we get along. We're lifelong friends, lifelong brothers. He has nobody. He doesn't have a brother or a sister. He doesn't even have parents. I mean, he's got his son. But my family has always adopted him. Like his family is my family. My brother, my sister, and my other brother Freddie, and my mom. I mean, Vinny comes over and he's eating, he's hanging out. This is his family, his extended family. And so it's like it's that's the way it's been. It's been great. It's been great.
It's interesting you bring up the family thing, because like that's something that also comes up all the time when people talk about you guys on the show. I'm going to paraphrase here, but there's this thing that's been told to me where, like, there's certain bands in New York that if you gave them a loaf of bread, they you'd see the loaf of bread and then five dead bodies on the ground with a knife as they killed each other trying to fight over the loaf of bread. But if you gave it to Agnostic Front, it would all be shared equally, and everyone would make sure that everyone was fed.
Yeah, that's what we've always been. We've always been well, yeah, us, especially us. And I lived that way in New York City amongst a lot of my friends. We live very much like a tribe style lifestyle. I talk about it in my book. And I've always believed in that. You know what? Because I had nothing. I didn't have I mean, I had my mom and brothers, of course, but I didn't have that bond that I needed until I discovered New York hardcore, and it became like my family. And it was something special to me that I've never had. I never had a group of people that I could relate to and like feeling like I'm feeling, as rebellious as I was rebellious, and it became something really special to me. And I've always kind of, it's my passion. I've always worshiped that, and I've always been like, this is real. This is genuine. So I'm really committed to that because you know, it's something I loved and it really saved my life. And I think a lot of people should and when they see us, that's another thing. Like people, well, our secret to our longevity, I've always said this too, is the fact that people come up to us and meet us, they can see that we're real, we're genuine. And if you're not, people are gonna figure that out quick. And nobody wants to be a part of something that's bullshit or some part that's not real. Do you? Do you want to be a part of something that's not real?
No.
No. So it's pretty simple. And we've always been real. We didn't never faked anything. We never claimed to be the best. We never claimed to be anything that we're not. We just always been genuine, real, and titles have been handed down to us. We didn't claim them. We never made any claims. It's just this is how people think of us.
Taking out, labels and isms from it, it is kind of like a very sort of socialist existence that's happening within the band. Like this sort of idea of equality and family structure and trying to create the world you want to live in, for yourself.
hmm It is. We're very tight knit. We still was tight knit. We handle all our own stuff, our own. We're kind of a single running machine. We have a friend that helps us here and there, The one time, whenever that we expanded, only because of management, whatever, we realized that was not really us. It's not our thing, and we just went back to handling our business because you know what? The truth is, if you want anything done right, you got to sometimes do it yourself. And that's where Vinny has left me alone because he knows that if it's going to get done, if it's going to get done right, you know, I'm going to make sure because I really, everything I am a part of, I want to, I always see that it's done right, truthfully, and correct in everything I've ever been a part of, because I don't want to be a part of any of this bullshit.
From the sounds of it, like going back to when John or James were singing for Agnostic Front, like it felt like they were already a scene band from what everyone kind of describes. And,
Hmm.
I think you even describe it.
Yeah.
But like you join the band, and it's almost like you're like, okay, well, let's now it's real. Like it goes from being a scene band to well, a band that changes everything, but like a real band once you kind of
Yeah, and Vinny's always spoken about that. I think when nobody, and even myself when I joined the band, I never thought I didn't even I was so clueless. I didn't know New York was past New York City. I never knew that they went all the way into Buffalo and Albany. Like that's how narrow minded I'm. Plus, I'm a kid, and I didn't know. Like I'm an immigrant. Like English isn't my first language, and I never went past. Never eighth grade is my last grade complete. But either way, like when I joined the band, for some reason, I stepped in, I joined the band, everything's great. And then as some members started to fiddle and started getting different members, I felt like now I could do what I really wanted to do. And I got everything pretty seriously. And getting this tour together, started doing things. I wanted to take it to a different level. And that's pretty much how it went. In the beginning, it was definitely a New York thing, and it always remained a New York thing. We were always welcome back from all our tours. People were really proud of us that we went out there and we waved the New York hardcore flag. We brought New York hardcore to all over the places. Then started doing it all over. New York is probably one of the only and biggest scenes that is that bridge scene with all of the world. Like there's so many people that could really connect to New York hardcore. Brazil, Portuguese, Spain, France, Australia, Japan. There's like something about it, and we kind of were on the forefront of that. Of getting people together. I think people just really gravitated to our band and loved it, and especially after that Live at CBGB's record came out. The other day I was thinking about that. Live at CBGB's for a live record, it's probably the biggest live record in our genre of music, of punk and hardcore. I can't think of anything bigger when it comes to especially exposure or anything like that. That's like a classic record that everybody talks about and everybody owns.
yeah.
It's like the Peter Frampton Alive or something of hardcore,
Yeah, like kick out the jams. It would be like I'd say
Yeah.
kick out the jams for like proto punk. But like you're right, there's not really like a capital P punk record, first wave, that's like a live record that there's a
Mhm.
lot of great ones, but yeah, like the live at CBGB's is iconic. And you're right, it does go global, like hardcore worldwide. And New York hardcore, because of like the flag that you guys are waving, and then it's carried on after you guys as well, and
Yeah.
to this day.
And that's another thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, is
No,
that we
please.
never we never claimed to be the only flag wavers of the New York Hero flag. We're always been proud of other bands, the younger bands coming up and waving the flag. We never like felt like because I've always said you're gonna meet the same people on the way up as you are on the way down. So we've always been polite and generous, and we love all the bands. We've always invited them to come with us and do stuff with it because we know at some point someone's gonna get bigger than us. We don't care. We just you're waving that flag, New York hardcore flag. It's like I say, like maybe today is not my party because my party was 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84. That was my party, and I really enjoyed it, and it was my youth and it was my craziness. But we've always been today and currently we're always invited to everyone else's party because that's how much we mean to them. Like we are like the bands that influence them so much, and in a good way always been invited, you know and extended that hand back to us. Not many bands do that. There's a lot of bands that they either they stop playing or they're too good to hang out or too good to be anybody else or it's just weird. We've always been that band that's the band.
Yeah, because even with I wasn't there, and so I'm looking at it from obviously a distance, but even with Cause for Alarm, like as critiqued it is for being like a quote unquote metal record, it never felt like you guys were trying to go metal. Like it never, like it felt like you were just that sonic was being brought in, but it was never like some of those LA bands or even some of the Boston bands where like they were like, okay, now we're taking a hard shift and we're no longer about what we were about.
Yeah, we never claimed to have made a change. I know a lot of bands have been like, okay, we grew up. That's, this is who we are now. We never did that. I think what was going on back then is subconsciously, a lot of the bands, the metal and the punk bands were like, coming together, and they were like there was so much more similarities than there was differences. And I've always said that too. The only difference between metal back in 1980, 85, 86, 87, and hardcore was the hair. Everybody dressed kind of the same, black pants, boots, tight shirts, and everybody had that attitude. Everybody was against the system. Everybody wanted to be heard, whatever they were, they were just outcasts, misfits. The only difference is some people had long hair, some people had mohawk, some people had no hair or spiked hair. That's the only difference. And we all loved aggressive music, and we loved that music with aggressiveness, whether it was the guitars, the vocals, the drums, and it came together. And I think Cross for Alarm was just that, us meshing. Same thing you saw like with Carnivore started doing more hardcore, and we were both influencing each other. We started doing a little bit more of the metal stuff, like Rob and Alex were feeling that direction a little bit more. And it kind of worked, I preferred those songs when we did them live, always have. I think those songs sound way better live. We've never been a recording band. The studio is really never for us. We're more of a live band. That's why that live at CBGB's is so classic, because people heard that and they see us and they like relate, like, wow, this is like the real thing. It's not like, we're all of a sudden this intricate sounding band and you see us live and it's a different band or something like that. It's just, I don't know.
You say that, but you put out probably, for my money, one of, if not the greatest hardcore LP of all time. And I think that's why a lot of people, like when I was getting into it and, learning from the older heads as one does, it was always presented to me like, victim in pain, never cause for alarm. And so I didn't have the baggage with it that some of these people had. So I loved them both from the get go. And I think obviously the world's caught up and like a lot of people love all your records now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe there was maybe because there is such a hard, not a hard turn, but there is a sonic shift from this iconic first LP, beloved first LP, to that second LP.
Mm-hmm. I call it growth,
Yeah.
maturity, growth. We went from never leaving New York or tri-state area, Connecticut, Philly, stuff like that, Jersey, to we finally going out and meeting all these bands, playing with all these bands. It was just growth. Meeting Metallica, meeting Exodus, meeting you know, all those bands back then, and then meeting us, and then it was like I remember giving us talking to Metallica, and they were like our backstage room, and they're like, oh, and they're like, oh yeah, what's gonna be your next record? I handed them a sticker. Oh, it's called Liberty and Justice for dot dot dot. And they're like, yeah, we got a record coming out. It's gonna be out in 6 months, and all of a sudden their record comes out. It's called And Justice for All. I mean, did we have anything to do with that influence? I mean, I remember handing them the stickers and talking to them, and it was just like it was cool just meeting other bands and just subconsciously and kind of influencing each other. You know what I mean? There's never anything done like deliberately, and that's really what happened. That's really what happened.
Yeah, like now that I play in a band and have played in a band for a very long time, I have so much more empathy for the growth that happens within a band because when you're on the outside, you don't, it's just so different than once you're like involved in this process and you're writing these songs and you're touring this music and it's a natural thing. And I think there are obviously those bands that do take that like, oh, I hate that stuff now kind of turns, but otherwise it's just something that's going to organically kind of happen.
Yeah, I just think it's growth in a band and different members and how you're feeling, what you're doing, or what's missing. Um, I've always said we've always been on the forefront of all the different variations or what we call old school, new school, and all that hardcore and crossover and thrash and all that stuff. And then we've always recycled ourselves. We've always been leaders, not followers. So we're kind of recycling ourselves,
Hmm.
like, and we're writing songs, but in the same vein as this or in the same vein as that, and it's not done deliberately. It's just us being us, and and that's how the songwriting goes. We'll write a song if it feels good. If it feels good to us, feels genuine, feels honest, and I feel that, I feel like I could deliver that to the our friends and family. I never like to say fans, and and then they observe it, and it's not for everybody. I never say, hey, you got to like my band. If you don't like my band, go screw yourself. I play for those that want to be there and are there to see us, and I always want to make sure everybody has a good time. That's all. Me and Vinny, the same thing. Like, if you don't like us or don't, and just don't come. It's as simple as that. Why would I want to go see a band I don't like? I don't get it, like, I'll just stay home. And I think that goes for a lot for like songwriting too. Like, there's those so many critiques and stuff like that. Maybe it was not made for you. Maybe it's not your cup of tea. It doesn't mean it's someone else's cup of tea. Well, maybe I'm feeling chai today. Maybe I'm feeling mint. It doesn't matter. It's still a cup of tea, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to shove it down nobody's throat. You don't like it? Cool. Some new kid liked it now. Now I have 10 new kids, and maybe I lost one or two, but they eventually all gravitate and come back because they know the way we are. We're more of a live band. We're not that recording band. You come to our show, everything comes together and like, wow, these songs are, oh, wow, what are these songs? And then they go back and they revisit.
Hmm. Well, because I guess to get more and more populist, you have to sand off more and more of the edges or lean in more and more to one way and just kind of make compromises to
I don't
appeal.
think we I don't think we lean into any way. I think we just do, like I said, we tour a lot and we're always touring, meeting new bands and stuff. And subconsciously still to this day, stuff mixes. Like, not every, I can't say, hey, we've influenced every band. We've done it all. If it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be this. That's rude. There are young bands still influencing us. And when
Yeah.
I watch them play, I'm like, and subconsciously I got something in my head that, wow, it was great, and it stuck in my head. And when I'm writing something, it may have channeled through. And I'm not going to say, well, hey, we're the best, and that's that. You guys are second rate, third rate. You're the L team. The B. That's so freaking rude, man. It's
Yeah.
like we're still to this day being influenced by all these younger bands, and you know what? And they're schooling us here and there. Like, hey, like I said, we're never going to hold that torch all the time, but we're glad to pass it over and glad to hear these bands. Like, wow, these bands are great. This is what I want to hear. I don't want to hear crap in the radio, like, this is what I like. And that, I think that means a lot. I mean, Vinny's the same way, man. We go on tour, we have the greatest of times, especially all the new bands. They want to hear all the crazy stories, and then it's just fun. It's just fun. It's just a good time.
Yeah, like it becomes hardcore worldwide, right? And that's when it becomes, to me, really interesting. And that's when it becomes organic. Like it's not, and like you're saying, that's why
I think
it's,
organic is a great word for that, for what we're all trying to describe here. It's kind of a weird word, organic. You think food or whatever, but it's just a natural organic. Like, it's feels comfort. It's just doing what feels right for you, and having that confidence to believe that what you're doing could be transferred to other people and they could relate to it.
yeah, and it's, I think that's like the difference between, um, like you guys and some of the other bands of maybe your era and other eras and too in punk where there's a lot of ownership and this is punk and this stuff isn't punk and this is hardcore and this stuff isn't hardcore. And I feel like that's when you lose it and that's when you miss the point because it's only interesting when it's all of it and it is this thing that's real, like real music. Like this is the difference between this and so much other shit because this is reality music and
Yeah.
it's and because of that, people's realities are going to be different and it's not going to be able to always be this one person's version of this thing.
No, it shouldn't be that. And like, when punk got into me, because I like to say that, I never say when I got into punk, because it got into me and it became like a virus, and I freaking loved it. All kinds of band. Punk was politically incorrect, and that was correct back then. And just the differences between bands and the sound. Like back then, if you kind of could hear where a band was from, and everybody sounded different. Listen to Dead Kennedy, listen to Black Flag, listen to Circle Jerks, listen to SSD Control, listen to Negative Approach, listen to Minor Threat, listen to Agnostic Front, and even in New York, listen to Cause for Alarm, listen to Antidote, listen to The Abuse, listen to Urban Ways. It was just this beautiful mixture of like creativity and insanely incredible. And and back then there was some of that like a little slightly competition of better players, whatever. We were never known as the best players, trust me, you know. But what really blew a lot of people's mind in New York City was a lot of their, especially a lot of the earlier bands and stuff, is that, and even before I joined the band, Agnostic Front was always a band that was for the people. It was the people's band. And that never changed. From the minute John Watson was there singing, Diego on bass, Robbie Creek Crash on drums, Vinnie on guitar, that never changed. It was the people's band. And it was always the people's choice. You know, if you have to vote for the people's choice, it was Agnostic Front. Well, no, not the greatest players, not the best vocals, definitely, not anything like, but it was just the people's choice. And then we've always been that people's choice. And we've been grateful for it. And we've been always grateful that people have been influenced by us and stuff like that. And we like to, and it's after 42 years, that's all we got. I've been in places all over the world. I was on my honeymoon. I was in Greece and dressed in honeymoon clothing. I'm with my wife and my honeymoon. I'm in this white whatever. I don't know what that cotton stuff is, but I'm in my honeymoon, and people coming up to me and like crying, saying, "If it wasn't for you, I don't know what I would have done in my life." I've been to Russia, and for the first time I went to Russia, it was a guy in St. Petersburg came to me with his record, Cross Alarm. He goes, "I went to jail for having this record. I did 2 years in prison because I owned this record." Could you believe that?
That's wild. Yeah. It makes you realize
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like
And he still has that same record. He didn't care. He did the time, you
mhm.
know. And I signed it for him. Like you meet these incredible people that have gone through this crazy hardship, and they'll say it. If it wasn't for you guys, I would have never got through this. So I think that's been our mission in life, for some kind of counseling worldwide, subconsciously again, just by us telling our stories and people knowing that we speak of oppression and overcoming oppression. And I think people could relate. I think if I was to take the lyrics of Victim of Pain, thrown in the ocean, a bottle, and 100 years from now, it washes up, some kid gets it and reads the lyrics, they could probably feel exactly the way I felt like 40 years ago, 140 years from now. It's that
Mhm.
we speak about like genuine stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's that's like why it's important because it, Black Flag was in service to SST. Like they were waving the flag for SST and uh, Minor Threat, Fugazi. Like it's for Discord, it's for DC. Agnostic Front obviously carried New York on its back, but at the same time, it was for hardcore, and this
Yeah.
was in service to hardcore. And this is like this thing that you don't own. It's not anyone's thing, and it's all over the world. And like you do it because you're driven to do it.
It's our passion. It's something we love. And it got in, like I said, it got into me. And I've been living my life too, like Vinny's been living his life to his fullest. I've lived a different life. But I've always said, when there's people my age that have aged way worse. I'm going to be 60 years old in another month. And I feel good about myself. I feel I've enjoyed life. I've traveled the world. I've seen things that people wait till they're 68 to retire, and then 2 years later drop dead. As long as there's a demand, people want to see us. Oh, we'll always be here. Well, if I have to go to work when I'm 68, well, I go to work. I lived a hell of a life. I lived 68 great years. I mean, from 17 to 50 of it at least was like my retirement. And let me tell you something. I toured the world. I did everything. I've done mistakes. I mean, I've lived a hell of a life, but it all like was a learning experience. And that's my giant retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go work. I'll go work over here across the street. Doesn't matter.
Well, and like, how many people don't even manage to affect their neighborhood, let alone affecting global neighborhoods of people?
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. I think like obviously what you guys did through determination and drive, but just the power of punk that gave kids like permission to use their drive and use their power to kind of see how far they could take it. And obviously, people took it to different places, but you guys, yeah, like it's kids in Japan, right? Like kids in
everywhere.
Brazil, like
And what's really odd about that is we were always like the redheaded stepchilds of the scene. We were always like the ugly ducklings, like in every way. Musically, I mean, there's nothing pretty about what we do,
yeah,
and if you look at us, we're like, a bunch of ugly tattooed guys. But I'm just talking. Like we were never the pretty pop punk kids, or and we never had any of that stuff. And I'm not knocking those kids down too, because there's a lot of great bands that always get a lot of shit for, and they're still being themselves just because they got air radio play and they got big. It wasn't their fault they got big. They're still doing what they love. But I'm just saying we were the ugly ducklings of the scene, and we kept doing it. We brought ugly music to you, and people liked it. They needed they needed they needed to feel like they were rolled around in a dumpster, and that's what we brought to them.
yeah. Like I think about this a lot. Like obviously, there's been a flattening that's happened, and geographically, there's been sort of like every place is kind of more or less this getting to the same thing now. But at a different time, geography shaped so much of who you were,
Oh,
especially the bands.
absolutely. You could, like I was mentioned before, you could tell where bands are from. If Agnostic Front, our sound comes from New York City. Like we probably would have never sounded the way we sounded like if we were a band in suburbia, California, or in Florida, or just it's authentic to where you come from. That's probably why the grit and ugliness and rawness. Same for, you could kind of hear it with Negative Approach and stuff like that. It's probably the upbringings and the urban, ugly lifestyle of living on top of each other and burned out buildings, burned out cars, and you know, chaos. And I think that also helped shape the sound of the band and who we were, as people. And it's oddly, and why we always talked about unity and all this stuff, because we knew how to live amongst each other. We were living in buildings, 12 families, different religion, different races. That never mattered to us. We're used to living like this.
Yeah.
We're used to living like this. My neighbor across the hall was, from China. My neighbor two houses up, we was, like African from Africa, whatever, or American, you're from the Bronx,
Yeah.
and Hispanics everywhere. Like we knew how to live with people because that's what it was natural to us. And then when we started touring, we started seeing all this separation. I remember on our first tour, I even went to a bathroom in the middle of somewhere. It's in my diary. I kept the diary, by the way, and I'm doing a new book. It's coming out. It's called With Time, and I'm doing a exhibit at the Punk Rock Bowling. Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'm gonna be down. Yeah.
To be there at Punk Rock Bowling?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, on May 24th at No Reality Theater at between 5 and 7, we're doing an exhibit of some of the stuff in my book. I've kept diaries, I've
Oh,
kept
fuck.
everything,
I
and
gotta
it's
see
all
that.
like things from it, and I'm talking about it in my diary. Like, I can't believe it. There's a bathroom still. This is 1985, and it says blacks and whites. I'm like, what am I looking at over here? Somewhere. And we saw like a real Ku Klux Klan burning thing. We pulled over the side of the road, we hid, and we were watching, and then we're like, let's get out of here. They may see us. And we kept, and then we, like things that you only see in movies or you read about. This is still stuff that we're like experienced on tour and seeing the different gangs and seeing the different things happening in different parts of states. And we never, we didn't, it was hard for us to relate to that because we grew up a certain different way. But I got a new book coming out too. It's called With Time. It's more of a coffee book based on my personal collection of all the Agnostic Front and based on that tour diary of every city, what we wrote about it, the flyers, pictures, stuff like that, and a lot of cool stuff. And that's going to be it's going to be announced pretty soon as
Oh,
a
that's
special
awesome.
2-hour exhibit. Just come. It's free to go through. Just come.
I'll be there. I can't wait because yeah, I
We'll
really
be there,
oh
together too.
oh man, my wife and I are going down for the thing, so we're gonna be definitely there. We'll see you at that event because I've been waiting for that book to be honest. Like last time we talked, you talked about how you kept everything, and obviously you see your chest of treasures at the very beginning of the documentary that you bust open, and like just all
Yeah,
the stuff
one of the
that's in
chess.
there. Oh
I still got that chess.
oh man, that's it. Like because it's interesting how these is like extending this sort of metaphor of this being a religion for people, punk in a lot of ways, those things become in a weird way like holy relics to a lot of people. Like you look at like the fever that kind of swept sort of 40 to 60-year-old men when Discord announced that box set of 7 inches coming out as they're all ordering it. And it's almost like if like, some mega church put out some new collector's plate with Jesus on it, the way their congregation react to it, because we've imbued this with the importance that people imbue religious things with.
Hmm. And I'm an avid collector, so I've been collecting my whole life and records. I mean, I have a pretty incredible record collection. I don't
Did
know
you
if
ever
you,
get a did you
huh?
ever get a FWA? Did you ever get your FWA LP?
My what, IP?
FWA from Florida.
Oh,
FWA.
the compilation?
No, that band from Florida, FWA.
Oh yeah, I got that.
You
Yeah,
got that eventually. Ah, that's still on my want list.
I got it. I got it.
Damn.
Yeah, it's great. You know me, I'm a avid record collector. I've had hundreds of flyers, and now I've streamed everything down because it's too much. Been streaming down to just AS stuff because I want stuff to leave for my children, so they know my legacy. That was the main reason behind writing my book is for my family, something they could have, they could always read. Because it was a struggle coming from Cuba all the way here and getting to where I'm at and going through what I've gone through. And I wanted that to be documented for them. But as an avid collector, and I didn't know, I just loved all this stuff. I mean, all that stuff was so important to me. Flyers, look at the art on flyers. I never liked a punk record that came out without a sleeve. Like, what is this? Like, don't you want to, like, it complements, like what you're saying complements image wise. So punk was very image to me, like the Sex Pistols. Look at that image. Look at the Ramones, the Dead Boys. I mean, New York Dolls. It's all image. And how do you not bring that in and then add your music to it? And it all works in hand. I've always hate that bands that release records, no sleeves and stuff like that.
Well, it's funny you say that though, because I think it kind of also can work the other way for a band. Like I always think if you guys and Tim Yohannan had been from the same city or in the same city at a certain point and met each other outside of all this sort of pre-existing baggage, preconceived notions on his side mainly, obviously, but like I kind of think ideologically, stripping again all the isms away and all that kind of stuff, you guys are coming at this from the same place. Like we want to build community. You
Yeah.
guys self-released your fucking 7 inch. Like bands out there weren't doing that. They were requiring DIY labels, but labels.
Well, here's the thing, it was very made known to me, especially when I went to San Francisco for the first time or California first, and what he was talking about. I didn't live there demographically. I lived over here, and he didn't know what we were talking about. And you see all these people and all these bands, AOD and all these bands writing saying, "Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. Agnostic Front's not like this. They're like this, whatever." But he had the classic judge a book by its cover mentality, and it was very different. The coasts were very, very, very. I'd never seen the gang mentality, the split of all these different punk movements till I went to like LA. I was like, wow, look at these punk gangs doing all this crazy stuff and they don't get along with each other. I never experienced any of that. But it's just like it's just the classic judging a book by its cover, just what I said. And he never really made his way to New York to hang out or come to the New York and really experience it yourself. So you're going to sit there and critique and judge everything by what you're experiencing. And he was experiencing some shit, and if we demographically lived over there, we wouldn't have sounded like we were. We probably never put out records like we were, like we did, because we probably wouldn't have felt some of the urge or some of those feelings that we felt lyrically that we did, like from United Blood or Victim in Pain. It's just different. But that was just, I always thought that was just complete rudeness. And when I did that classic interview for him, it was supposed to be, it was a simple agreement. You send me the interview, I answer, it's over. He rebutted and he answered over my answers because he always has to have his last say. And what's funny about that was we met him on tour and we had this thing, well, if anybody catch him out there, we're just going to light him up. And he finally came to one of our shows. I think when we played with Attitude at the Mobile Head Gardens in 1986, something like that, or 85, 86, 80. And this is the little old man. And we're like, we can't hit this guy. We're going to kill him. And we sat down, we talked, we had a great conversation, and he hung out the show, whatever, and we leave, and we thought everything's cool, and he starts talking shit about us again. Oh
Yeah.
man, unbelievable.
Well, it's and once again, I wasn't there, so I'm just looking at this from an outsider. But it seems like outside of like sort of like the imagery of stuff and sort of like the just like the vibes sometimes. But I think like on an actual like ideological level, what you guys are doing in New York and ultimately doing throughout your whole career is very much like what he seemed to kind of dedicate his life to out there, which is like building community, a community that will sustain after you're gone. It's about your what you're doing, but it's also about trying to create something that exists outside capitalism, that exists outside socialism, that exists outside of all this stuff. That just is like something that kids can go to for something and make something
But
out of.
he wanted it his way and only his way and only his way rules, and you have to think only his way. That's where it's all wrong. No, and we always, you should be able to, you should be able to think, and of course there's some things that, when someone's not good, or it's a bad apple, you just stay away from it. You know what I mean? But it's always been great for me. My whole life, I learned so much in life by just challenges. I've had different opinions through my whole life. There's a lot of things I would do different today than I did when I was young, But it was always been a learning experience. I was hardline thinking this way, and I met somebody, and he explained something to me, and I thought, and that's good to challenge yourself. But if you think everybody has to think the same way and behave the same way, which is what they were doing, and you're gonna get what you're gonna get. And then people started coming out to our shows. They made us more popular than anything. There were people that came out thinking that we were gonna show up, play on stage with like brown shirts or something like that, and they're like, "What is this guy talking about? This is a cool band. We're hanging out with them. We're at shows. We're playing. They're at my house. And it just starts taking him in the ass, and he just can't get it because he was trying to get people to think a certain way and only be a certain way, all kinds. And it wasn't just our band being attacked. There was a lot of bands being attacked. The Bruisers, there's so many bands being attacked. And it just didn't stick, and that's it.
But like it obviously didn't stick. But at the same time, how do you think it did affect things with you guys? Like,
Well,
did
like I
it?
said, I think people were more it's like, sometimes bad publicity is better than good publicity. It happened in
Yeah,
the Sex Pistols,
yeah, yeah.
And as long as you keep mentioning the band and spell it correctly, hey, people are going to be interested to to see or come out and experience and be at the show. And I'm not saying it was all great. There's been a lot of shows that we've had a lot of confrontation with people that we didn't want there or whatever, but we addressed it. And people know what side we take, who we are. And either way you put it, they've also put us in a line of danger many times too. They really did. There was a lot of times where we were playing shows in fear of our lives, and people were in fear of their lives, and it was not uncalled for. It was because there was bad attention being brought to. But as soon as we're up there talking about United Strong, blacks and white, punks and skins, and people start fading away, they start really knowing what's happening. It was weird, man. It was a weird time, but it was also a different time, where things were different. Like I said, there's a lot of things I would do different today. And I understand today where, you, like, it's like, I don't know. It's like there's so much more information out there for you to really look up things, to really understand things than there was when we were young. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have nothing. Even touring was a whole different challenge. We were calling people for shows. We don't know who the hell we were calling. We don't know who it was. We would just show up. Sometimes we show up and there was nothing there. It was fake. I remember we went to Chicago and it was an abandoned lot. We're like, oh, I guess we got played,
Yeah.
and we were all in Chicago, But now with the internet, you can gather more information and make your own decisions, whatever. Like things would be different.
And it's also because I think it does affect, well, I don't know, like it's obviously you've experienced it, but like it's interesting thinking about how it did affect things like it precluded you guys from a certain booking circuit. Like you couldn't go to like the book your own fucking life, Maximum Rock and Roll
Yeah.
circuit of people because you were tainted with that kind of brush at that point. But at the same time, it's also something that you guys, like you're saying, blacks and whites,
Yeah.
punks and skins, also
But
gay, like you guys were never like it never was something where I listen to your records. I'm like, this band hates gay people. Like
no,
gay people were always, I guess, a presence
said
in.
that I come from New York City. Like, I mean, you don't think we ever seen gay people in our life? You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, we're in a mecca of unfortunately the whole HIV and all that stuff. We lost friends to that,
yeah,
and it's just ridiculous. But it's funny you mention that because it was always like you would think we weren't allowed to play certain things, but we played all those clubs, and they never said that. I remember like when we played in Berkeley and we were playing with Neurosis and Dark Angel or Death Angel. I think they're from that area.
yeah.
And it was a great show, and then Neurosis, hey, we're playing the what's that famous
The
place?
Gilman.
Gilman. And we're like, yeah, they never invite us and we never wants to play. He goes, oh, come play. And we played. It was their show. Nobody knew. We have a guest and we played. We played a set, and it was people that and everybody loved it. And it was a couple of people that realized it was us and we were trying to stir up shit. Like there was like girls were up front of stage and took their shirt off and were like trying to be like they took the shirt because I had my shirt off. It's freaking hot. And so what? Take your shirt off. But they were instigating, trying to get us to instigate. Like you could do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Like what I mean, it's just there's always that instigators, whatever I mean. But it was just ridiculous. We've played all those places. We've done many basement shows, we've done many parties, we've done, I remember this one time we were in Europe and we are playing the squat and the people that lived in the squat were like, well, they had a meeting. They decided that they didn't want us to play. They were against us, so they left. They all left the squat, and we played. Like that's the oddest thing in the world. Why don't you just grow balls and cancel the show, get rid of us? They just decided because you know what? It was a huge show. They wanted their money out of it or whatever it was. And we just sat there. They fed us, whatever, but they were all against us. And I was like, okay, cool. It was a great show. It was in Italy. All right. Good luck. Have fun. There are all these hundreds of people here to see us. You're missing a great show. It's just oddball stuff, but it doesn't matter. Look, at the end of the day, like I said, look, I've done stupid things in my past. I've even wrote about it in my book. I've done things that I didn't know I was hurting people till I actually encountered people like that lady that had the numbers from a concentration camp and stuff like that. I had a destroy pin. I was a punk rock kid. I didn't know I thought it was Sex Pistols, punk rock. And all that stuff played. Yeah, I mentioned it for a reason. It was mind changing. It was like, oh, I was doing this, or I didn't really understand. I was a dumb youth thinking certain way, and I just wanted chaos and crazy. Like I said, I was a punk rocker when politically incorrect was correct. It's different now. But it was my life, and I'm grateful for being there. I'm grateful to be at that time of life when I think that was the best time of punk and all period. The birth. I was grateful to be there. And I understand the changes and stuff too. But it was all a life experience for me. And I took what I learned from it and then it brought me to some places I never wanted to be, but it was all a learning experience. If it wasn't for all that stuff to happen, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. And I just channeled it all in a positive way, which is another different thing that Agnostic Front did. Like we come from the scene where it was all like, the classic New York punk scene. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and fuck this, fuck that. Like we agree with all that, but hey, how about let's do something different? Let's make a little change. How about something positive? We're the new youth now in this movement, and how about we unite? How about we bring people together? No, fuck you, man. We do drugs, and so we just kind of figured it all out, and we just did our thing.
Well, like if this is an organic thing, there has to be room for growth. Like, what's the alternative? You double down on it, and you're like, "No, I never learned from anything. Fuck you. Everything
It's
I
a lot
said."
easier. It's a lot easier to point fingers and or walk, not be accountable for what you're doing. It's a lot easier to just typical narcissist mentality, whatever, or
Do you,
superior mentality. You know what I mean?
do you think the Maximum Rock and Roll, not Maximum Rock, but like the sort of like backlash that ensued, drove you guys to be like more contrarian in some of the stuff, or it drove you maybe
No,
not
we,
more
we
contrarian, but more towards certain imagery or more towards certain embracing certain things on cause for alarm or going towards cause for alarm? metal even, or
No, no, no. We just always did what we always did us. We didn't we it was just it was funny because that, even at the time I was with a woman that was in the biggest peace punk band in
yes.
New York. We had a kid together. And it was just confusing to so many people. And I loved it, you know.
Well, I think New York's confusing to a lot of people, and I think that's the
Well,
thing that
we knew how to live with people. I'm going back to we
yeah,
know how to live with people, you know. As long as New Yorkers are very interesting people. New Yorkers, they don't, you see them crossing over a dead body, they mind their own damn business. As long as that dead body's not reaching for you, trying to grab you, you're all right. You know what I mean? So
or a
we
friend
need
or a
to live
family.
amongst people. We know when a threat is a threat, when it's an imminent threat, when something you need to defend yourself or go for it. You know what I mean? So sometimes people talk or they're confused or they're just saying stuff or you're hearing different things, but that was good to challenge yourself mentally. Like, oh, but okay, I understand you like that, but what about this? And everybody kind of liked each other in their own different ways. Everybody kind of got along. Atlanta had that same type of scenes. A lot of the Eastern had that scene where I think on the West Coast is very hard line separated a lot of stuff and very confrontational and in an ugly way where you know in a confrontational in a threat way, you know. But hey, that was the past, man. And we actually did a really great interview for Maximum Rock and Roll. And my friend at the time also was in my Rumbles Car Club. He was always worked for Maximum Rock and Roll. He always wanted to clear all that stuff up. We did a fantastic interview.
Was it
And
Bruce Roars?
yes, and
Rest in peace. Yeah,
rest in peace, exactly.
yeah.
And and he was Max Rock and Roll is going to let me do this interview. I want to do it. And then we just, it was good. It was good. Look, bygones be bygones, like it was a time and a place. It was hard, but we pushed through and we were just being us. You put us in situations and we just, hey, we're doing what we're doing. We love what we're doing. So if you're trying to stop us, go for it. We're gonna keep going because we
We when we played, well, we didn't even play Maximum Rock. We got invited to Maximum Rock and Roll to do a DJ set one time, and we're going through the library, and we found an AF record, and we're like, that's fucking awesome. So we played an AF record, and he came running, and I guess something else maybe, and Bruce came running in. And he's like, "Oh my God, Tim would be spinning in his grave. This is amazing!" And like, I really feel like,
but he had all those records. You notice
oh
he
yeah,
had a hell of a great record collection. I heard he had a lot of shifty records too, because
oh
everybody sent
crazy.
everything. Everybody sent everything for review. It was like the Bible, and it was kind of like I said, it was very one way-ish, which was kind of a shame because you know, I mean, every band always wanted to send their records there for reviews and everybody wanted to be a part of it, but then you start isolating people and you're like, oh fuck it.
Well, it's like, you say that, and it's Walter Schreifels when he was last on the show. We brought up Max Rock and Roll, and it's always brought up in a glowing kind of way on this show, because Book Your Own Fucking Life was such an important book for bands and all this sort of stuff and all the work they did. But it is a double-edged sword, particularly for New York bands. Yourselves and Youth of Today got the worst of it, it seems, where because of the reach of this thing, and because there's not a lot of alternative media at that point, like this thing goes around the world and becomes
The Bible,
the Bible. Yeah.
punk Bible. This is what everybody was always looking forward to, the next issue and the next release, and see what's going on, in New York, what's going on in Italy, what's going on in Finland, what's going on in Southern California, Northern California, and it was and at one point it was just like, everybody else had other zines, and it really just became that. What I just told you is just a one thought process, and it's wasn't really fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going back to certainly more, well, I don't know, actually, I guess not more positive things necessarily, but interesting things for me. Like, was there other people you considered writing with on Cause for Alarm?
No, well, Steve,
Pete?
Pete wrote with them. I had kind of left the band for a moment, you know. But honestly, between me and you, I didn't really feel. I didn't really dig the music change a lot. It was more hardcore guy. And it actually grew on me after I recorded it because even when I did my vocals, I was sick, and I went back and I'm doing vocals that are not even mine. But everything kind of grew on me afterwards. And I enjoyed them playing them live. I wish I really got to play them live before. And we did. Like I have tapes. There's a good three of those songs that we played live, and they were different lyrics. Um, and just we were playing those songs in 1985 on a tour. I have a set list of some of the songs on it. And it was just, it just never matured for me. I never got that moment of the newer stuff, especially when Alex came in and bad stuff, to mature to me because I never got to really experience the rehearsals or nothing like that to really dive into the way I wanted to dive into it. I wish I would have been able to re-record that record when now my feeling stuff. And of course, there's some questionable, not, just they're not even questionable. It's just different things. It was basically if you live in New York, you understood what it was. You know what I mean? What it was talking about, whatever. But it was just it was a little strange for me because I came back into the situation. But it's people love that record.
Yeah, like it now it's changed. Like the world's kind of all your because it was always it felt like as time went on, people like obviously people loved these records, and there's Agnostic Front. When you got into Agnostic Front, that record you got into that you guys had out at the time is holds a special place to you, obviously. But it feels like time has gone on. The canon of great Agnostic Front records has increased as all these other records have kind of been brought into the fold as people have kind of been influenced by them.
Yeah, and every record is different. It sounds different to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a hard time sometimes listening to the records because even I sound different on all the records. But like I said, we're not a studio band. We're not. And then you put on that live record at CBGB's, you hear all those songs from prior to 1989, and they all sound like it's like wow, these songs are they all joined together in a certain way. And it's just we're more of a live band. I've always told people, you want to really know what we're about, come to our live shows. That's then you really understand the band more than anything. We're not a studio band. I mean, through the years we've gotten better at being in a studio, but it's different when you're actually performing the songs, when you put your whole self into it. It's more convincing somehow. You know what I mean? Like you could feel the passion of the songs, of the moment, of everything. That you don't hear that. You don't really feel that in records. Not from Agnostic Front. There's other bands that do that. You could feel that passion, that energy, whatever. We were never that band, really. Kind of. We're more that live band. And there's a couple. I mean, look, Victim in Pain is a record. It's a monster. And I've always said it. Everybody's like, "What's your favorite records?" And I'm like, I'd be arrogant if I have to mention my own band, but you know what? It's up there with the top five. I don't really care what anybody says. I listen to it and I get blown away. I
Mm.
put it on to this day. I still put it on. I'm like, holy shit, I did that, like, and it was a magical time and place. And it's a great record and lyrically, like where I was. And now and we're gonna have them at the Punk Rock Bowling Show. We're having the 40-year anniversary version of Victim in Pain. It's remastered by Don Furious, and now it sounds like like right you're right in the studio with us from the actual reels because since 1986 and on it's been a different master and a masters of masters of masters. This is direct from the reel now, so you get to hear it in a different way. It's a different animal, and it's 45 instead of 33 RPM, so it jumps at you. It's a great sound. I heard it the other day. I was like, wow, this thing is fierce. It's biting people. And I'm proud of it. I didn't know what we were doing. We were like, we were just four dudes in a studio just doing what we're doing. And we did something special for New York. Like it's still known as, a huge influential album, put New York hardcore on the map. And there was other bands, don't get me wrong. Reagan Youth, I love Reagan Youth. What a great album. Came out at the same time. Kraut, you know. But for some reason, Victim in Pain did something different. Did something really different that those great bands, I love Kraut, love Reagan Youth. And Victim in Pain just was a different caliber, came out of a different gun, whatever it was, that more people kind of boom, grab it.
Well, you kind of said it there. Like there's a lot of those New York bands by the time those LPs came out for whatever reason, like don't really capture. I guess the power of these bands when you watch the live videos, or I guess to experience them live in some cases, or their demos that came out before. But Victim in Pain's the one that just like, yeah, like it sounds perfect. And I obviously it could have been way more powerful live, as you know, but like not experiencing it. And I'm watching the videos, it's fucking amazing live. But like that record is just, but like even you as a front man, like to me, you're like one of the greatest front people of all time. But you have different eras in these different periods of the band, and like watching you adapt to the changing music and still being a hardcore front person, like not trying to be a metal front person, not trying to be a like a I don't know like a like but just always being a hardcore front person in these bands. It's awesome. But I
I'm
want to
just
ask.
being, I was just being myself, you know. And to this day, it's really weird that there's people that don't know me in that scene, you know. And I I've like from what all the other stuff I do, like Jiu-Jitsu World or what family, friends, and they come to my show and I get on stage and I play and I get off stage, they're like, "What happened? What did I just witness?" They're like, "That was incredible," whatever. Like what? And then I'm so quiet, so humble off stage, you know. I'm like so polite, whatever. I'm the same way. It's just that this is this intense intensity of like punk got into me. It's in me, you know. It's like that virus is fucking going crazy, and it's just me doing my thing. I love to do, you know. It's not like I put on a performance, you know. It's just, this is me, and this is me with my people, my element, you know, my the stuff I love. This is me, my retirement plan, you know. And over here, I'm the dad over here, whatever, and I'm still the same person, you know. But they're in shock, you know.
Yeah, I think there's like I think it's like a One Voice era live video of you guys playing. You got the sick braided like hair. You're doing like the awesome like stage mosh kind of dance thing on stage, and there's like 90 dudes. I'm trying to remember where it's fucking from. It's like a huge club, and there's like a riot that breaks out. And it's like you guys on the stage and
Oh,
the
it
kids
must
of
have been
this,
Urban Plaza.
and then the bouncers like there's like
Right.
and
Yeah, yeah. We had
yeah,
a fight with the riot, a riot
yeah,
and with sponsors. Not Urban Plaza, the Palladium.
played. Okay, that's it. And there's a frustration in your voice as you're talking at that point and in your face. Uh, did it become like a lot at a certain point, showing up in different
Yeah.
places, having to deal with kind of like this level of aggression? Not the positive aggression we're talking about, but like just like,
There were many shows that we pulled up to, and I would say, "Hey, we're here to play for you, not against you. If you continue yourself, we're gonna stop playing." And literally 3 or 4 songs, we stopped playing. We're like, I didn't come here to play for certain things to happen. I didn't come here to play for the bouncers to beat up the people here. It's done. And you know, people know my frustration, know what's going on, so they're all frustrated. So they got tired of the bouncers being the bouncers, and they bring it on. You know what's gonna happen now? Huge ass riot. You know, you bought it upon yourselves. I'm not catering to. I'm not going to play towards it. You're going to behave in this same manner. Now you're going to have to deal with the consequences. So there's many times that's happened. You know, I'm telling you, man, we just want to play, and especially even as you get older, you just want to have fun and you know just have a good time and play and do the things we love, enjoy the show afterwards and meet people. I mean, we're just very grateful of have had this life, you know, and it wasn't easy. You know, we've seen a lot of bands come and just go and become gigantic bands, and we're always that same middle level band, but we have a really good giant underground core that it's like the greatest friendship in the world. You know, like again, I don't like using the words fans, but that core, it's the structure to any high riser. We have a hell of a structure. You could build the biggest building in the world, and it's standing on New York hardcore, our structure, what we created. And that means a lot more because all that stuff could come down, but that structure is still going to be there, that base, you know? And we've always had that mentality. Like I tell you, we can meet the same people on the way up and we went down. And it's been a giant roller coaster ride. And we've seen these people on the way up and on the way down. They remember, we remember, they remember, we remember, they remember, and it's fun.
well, there's always that quest for family that I think draws a lot of people to punk and hardcore, like to build your own family, create your own family.
Yeah, something you belong to that you want, that you enjoy, that feels genuine.
Yeah, and I think like, and obviously there's the gang, the family in LA prior to Agnostic Front, but it's really around Agnostic Front that you start, and New York hardcore, I guess it's also becomes part of it, where like this sort of idea of using family to describe this sort of thing, and using these are my brothers, these are my
But
sisters, these are my people, like,
it's true, everything you're saying, and I think I've explained it. I mean, this is the way our upbringing was. Like in these buildings, you have to understand in these
yeah,
12 family buildings, doors were always open, even though I was as a kid. You know, like you went across, you play with this neighbor, you went 2 flights high up, you play with this neighbor. We were always playing outside, playing, bottle, whatever games on the street. It was you go, you knew everybody in the building, you knew everybody in the building next to you, you knew natural thing. It was like it wasn't like when I first moved to Phoenix, I thought it was weird. Because I've never seen like homes with block fences between every home. I always see block fences in industrial areas, because you don't want people to come in and break it. But every house here has a block fence. Like you go back to New Jersey and like that, there's no fences. They're all people, all the kids come out and play. Or if there's a fence, it's a chain link fence because you have a dog. But there's still that back door. You go out and play football in the middle of the whole thing, and there's like 30 families. And it's an East Coast thing, especially a New York thing where, the whole block, everybody knew each other. There was challenges, you always had to, make sure, everybody looked out for each other and stuff like that. But it was always very family orientated, very. And that's what ruined New York. As soon as they started gentrifying, they got rid of all the families and they had to go somewhere. They pushed them out into more different suburbs. It became nothing. It became bland. Like people don't even know each other. There's people like I go to Vinnie's house. I'm like, who's your neighbor? He goes, I don't know who they are. I used to go to Vinnie's house. You open the door, his aunt was upstairs, his mom was downstairs, his cousin Babs was all in this. It was just like, whoa, every door is open. Like I tell you, you walk into every door, someone's cooking. Hey, Rod, sit down, I got popcorn. That's all gone. That's all gone. That's the New York we grew up with. You understand? That's why we have all these values and these roots that it's just not like we're trying to do something. It was always there. It was always there for us. Always there for us.
well, and not to dwell on the more negative stuff, but like that thing you talked about, going out to LA, seeing that sort of the gang structure that existed in hardcore. Obviously, that's coming from people that grew up around gangs. Like that's part of the community that's kind of coming into the scene,
Exactly.
bringing that stuff in. But then it becomes like, and Rollins talks about this in America's Hardcore. So he says, yeah, we brought that back to DC, and then it gets brought to Boston, but it's a plaything for them, right? Like it's kids that it's not part of their world and they don't necessarily need it, but it gets to New York. And I think it really made sense for all these kids. Like, and obviously the violence thing becomes something like a disease, but it just feels like the crew structure, like all that stuff, these kids that were homeless, these kids that like you guys were like living in squats, like this made sense for these kids. It wasn't a plaything. This was like something that just took hold.
Yeah. You know, yeah, you're right about that. There's a lot of, like I said, geographically, it was so different. And I experienced that on my first tour and like how the scenes were, how everything was, how people were living, than how we were living. And I think a lot of the stuff that you're seeing lyrically with Agnostic Front, what I speak about was just normal, organic stuff that happened that was part of our lives. It wasn't forced. We weren't trying to be a family or trying to be a tribe, or it was just we were living it, you know? And it was just that was our way of life. And that's all we knew. Like, what do you mean? I'm gonna go upstairs, hang out, play with this guy, or whatever, or go down the road, go down the block, it was normal. Like, and then when I see the way other people are doing stuff, it's normal for them and it worked for them. And I could see where the differences was. And I was really always grateful to go back to New York and be amongst that craziness that kind of energized me.
Well, it's always like 82, 83 is kind of like, oh, that's when hardcore ends. Like, people in LA talk about the violence getting too much, but that's when I think you guys carry the torch. And that's when it becomes like, this is going to be what this thing is.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Everybody's always talking about what some ends and like, how could you say that? How could you say like I remember reading that book, the same book you're talking about,
America's
America
hardcore.
or
Yeah.
something like that, America.
Yeah.
and saying Punk died this. I mean, how do you say that? And what was really crazy about it, by the way, my just so you know, my computer's gonna die probably in about maybe like 5 minutes. So if you have anything important, but because it's I don't have my charger, I'm not even home. But what I'm trying to say is that here we are playing a sold out show at CBGB's, packed. And right next door to CBGB's gallery, there's a whole thing on American hardcore and all these photos and all this stuff. And I'm talking about how Punk died in 1986 or 85, whatever. Excuse me. What are you talking about? This place is packed. Oh, you mean you gave up? You mean you gave up? You mean you died? It died in your heart because you just didn't want to see anything different than what only your belief and your thoughts. You didn't want to accept the new people, accept what was happening. Some of it was wrong, you know. Some of it, well, you just redirect. You don't have to get off that lane or that exit. Go to the next exit. Find people you can relate with. Still, people love that stuff. You mean you gave up? Because as far as I know, this place is packed and I'm still touring the world. So what the hell are you talking about? I've just accepted the fact that, it is what it is. And it's still there. It's still growing. There's always going to be some new band, some band influenced by this band, somebody doing something because they feel that they're screaming for a change. They feel oppressed. They want to talk about something. And it's just either you live in your own bubble or you just move with it. And we've always moved with it because that's a lot of the gratefulness and gratitude we have is that we were able to tour and meet different people, meet different bands, just gel with so much that it kind of kept us alive and youthful and not bitter and that just stayed in certain areas and never did nothing.
We talk about jiving and or mixing with different people. Did you ever meet or were you ever around because they were in New York around the same time or like not the same time obviously but towards the late 80s the Murder Junkies and Gigi Allen and that whole
Oh
scene?
God, yes, of course. I've known them before the Murder Junkies. The Jabbers. I'm a huge Jabbers fan. I love the Jabbers. I've seen the Jabbers. I've seen all the early Gigi Allen before the whole Murder Junkies stuff. And even I remember being at a couple shows that come right to my mind. The Cat Club show, you know, and Gigi Allen's, hey, come to see my show, because we knew each other on that level from the old play, the shows. And I went and I remember he was normal, we talking whatever, and he came back. He's like, "Hey, Roger, maybe it's gonna get a little crazy." I'm like, "I know, I've seen you before." So he goes, "I had, I took a lot of laxatives and I had a lot to." I remember them, the club trying to get rid of him with the pool sticks, trying to push him away as he's trying to throw shit at everybody. I mean, it's a mess. Personally, I prefer the Jabbers in that era than the more of the shock era. You know what I mean? I was really not into the shock era, but Gigi Allen and later on in the year, I wasn't really big on that stuff, but I still enjoyed some shows. But when it got too crazy, I was like, I've seen a couple of really crazy shows. I don't want to talk about it, but I've seen a little really bad, crazy shows. But those early '87 shows of just the Jabbers or just him, what was that other band before the Murder Junkie?
Malpractice Band,
No, right before that.
Texas Nazis, or that's after the
No.
Murder Junkies.
Yeah.
AIDS Brigade, or that's
I can't remember, but
there's a lot of terrible names we're gonna have to run through.
and it he started going into that shock thing. It just, I was into a different thing,
Yeah.
but it wasn't my thing. But I went to the shows because he invited me. I saw him on the street, whatever, and I still went. But the Jabbers are incredible, man. I think that first Jabbers album is one of the greatest punk records ever, American punk records. People don't give it a shot or a chance because they think, they hear Gigi Allen, they know, his prison sentence and all that crazy stuff. And I mean, he doesn't have the greatest rap, but if you get a chance to listen to that first album, what's it called again?
Suck on This, is that the first one, or
No, that's with the all the shock stuff.
I thought that was still Jabber's era, like the one with like the hand drawn penis on the cover, or whatever, like the blowjob thing. I'm thinking maybe I'm misremembering the name.
I'm talking with the first two Jabbers 7 inch.
Beat 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 and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What's the first album? I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, I
Well,
remember when Sting dies.
yeah. Well, I was just like the because it's rare that you have a songwriter who becomes worse as they go on. Like Gigi Allen became a worse songwriter than. Well, not to go out on Gigi Allen, but I don't want your computer to die without me saying thanks for coming on, Roger. And anytime you want to come back, Vinny or not, you're always welcome.
Well, thank you. I had a good time. We talk about always pretty cool stuff. Um, it's a lot, man. We could talk forever, you know that. But always was, is, and always shall be is one of the greatest punk records. Just remember that. You know, people may disagree with me, but you listen to that 7-inch, I mean that LP, and it's basically the two 7 inches and maybe one or two more songs. It's phenomenal.
It's punk rock bowling time. That's right, for the 24th year, one of the greatest festivals on earth, in my opinion, returns to downtown Las Vegas the weekend of May 25th, 26th, and 27th. I have had some of my greatest times playing this thing and just hanging out at this thing. You want to know how much this festival speaks to Turn Out a Punk's mindset? The headliners are Devo, Descendants, and Madness. Every day of this festival, the lineup is stacked with amazing bands of all types and stripes of punk and hardcore from all different eras, from ska to post-hardcore. We're talking like Bratmobile to Rock from the Crypt to Stiff Little Fingers to the Cosmic Psychos to Scowl to Chat. And then there's also all these late night after shows which are happening. And you wouldn't believe the lineup of these things, from the Zeros to Agnostic Front and everything in between. This festival is out of control for fans of punk. So I hope I will see you there, because this isn't like some sort of festival that you just go to and the bands are secluded in some sort of backstage area. Bands and fans and just punks alike are all just taking over downtown Las Vegas. So you turn around and all of a sudden you're gambling beside John Doe from X. I don't know if John Doe gambles, but if you turn around on the buffet line, you'll probably see me. And you better believe we're going to be talking about punk music. And because this festival loves this podcast as much as this podcast loves this festival, Punk Rock Bowling is bringing you a series of special episodes. So each and every week, I will have an episode going up featuring someone that's playing this festival. And hot damn, are there some good ones coming. Head over to punkrockbowling.com and hopefully I see you in downtown Las Vegas, May 25th, 26th, and 27th.